What's up, sisters and friends? Welcome back to another episode. Happy Monday, everybody. I hope you're getting your week started off great. This is a good sign. You're starting out here. I hope today you're going to get so much good advice. And y'all, I really just don't know where this conversation is going to go because we have invited two of our best friends on the podcast, including my husband's on the podcast today, and we're interviewing / just having a conversation. I don't even want to say interviewing. We're really just having a conversation with two of our closest couple of friends, Parker and Freddy. Y'all already know Freddy. She was on the podcast. She's our first LO counselor. We talked about all that. Now she's back here with her husband, Parker, and we get to do life with them. So we're so excited. We're going to talk all things relationships, marriage, friendship, all the things, and we're so excited. But we have to start out by being honest with the people. Yeah. Okay, so anytime you happen to plan, like, let's do a marriage podcast today. Let's do something like, out there. Does it not always happen that you have arguments the morning of?
Yeah. Yes, it does.
Yeah, and we both did this morning.
Ours was like 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, ours is still fresh. It's still
We've had a couple hours to...
Yeah, we had the ability to kind of... Yeah, it was like a 7 o'clock argument.
Dang, we were snoozing.
I was in REM sleep at 7 a.m.
And you know you were because you got your whoop band and your ring. And you probably got something else going on too, don't you?
No, just these two things. Just these two things. Well, you
Christian's a sleep tracker.
Slightly offended me 20 minutes ago.
Yeah, but let's just, okay, this is actually a good moment, because you know how sometimes you're like arguing in marriage and then you'll be like, if I could only just like rewind this and we could actually play it and you could see it, you would know that I didn't say that offensively.
Like if there is a hidden camera.
Yes, yeah. And y'all were kind of acting as our hidden camera because y'all were both there. And we're going to rewind it and I'm going to let you repeat to everybody what I said that just so offended you.
Well, usually I would say I do want a hidden camera, but for this moment I wouldn't because it's not that big of a deal. So basically... I'm about to go on a hunting trip in Nebraska. When this goes out, it'll be Monday, so I'll be in the thick of it at this point. And it's supposed to be like -1 degrees. And like everyone that I've told I'm going has always followed up with, oh, well, do you have enough clothes for that?
I didn't know this.
Hold on.
I wasn't in any of these conversations.
Hold on. They don't know that. And
that's what I'm telling you.
And my response is always like, yes, I have plenty of clothes. My ski jacket that I wear on our ski trips is camo. Perfect. So I'm going to wear that, obviously. I have plenty of... Yeah, it's really cool camo. Yeah. So I have plenty of like Under Armour cold gear, like leggings and like, tops. I have really warm sweatpants that I'm going to wear. I have wool socks.
This time you're saying it's really warm sweatpants.
Well, I was going to wear some like flimsy like Lululemon kind of sweatpants. Like
that's, yeah.
Am I going to wear Lulu? Yes. But it's not like the latex, like the stretchy ones. It's like the wool, warmer ones.
They still don't know what I said to offend you, though.
So Sadie said, so after I've heard this all week, and we're talking about it's going to be like -1 on Friday, so this is Monday, so this is 3 days ago.
Our first time to talk about this.
Yes.
I haven't been in
and
any
Sadie's
of those
eating her little acai bowl, and she's like mouthful, like, do you have enough clothes for that?
No. I said, do you have clothes for that?
Yeah, and that with like the eyebrow scrunch, it was like, do you have clothes for that?
As a concerned wife,
as if I haven't like prepped and like thought about it.
But like in my mind, I'm like, I'm being a good wife. Like, hey, like, do you have enough clothes for that? Like, because if you don't, I'll go make sure you get the clothes for that. And he's like, whoa.
Well, here's the thing. I
have clothes? Who do you think I am?
I've been doubted all week, and just to see my best friend and my lover look at me, and question if I'm prepared. I was kind of like a little caught off guard. I was expecting you to be like, of course my baby's prepared.
Do you have enough clothes for that? And then I said, do you even have clothes for that? Like, because I know your closet. Yeah. You are a Lulu guy. Like, we could start a store. And there's not like a lot of like winter gear. And then you follow that by me asking about you saying, yeah, I have a ski jacket. And then I'm like, well, that's great. But like, do you have socks? Do you have pants? Do you have... And then you said... And I have sweatpants. And I'm like, babe, I think you're underestimating what -1 degrees feels like. You need like
I'm going to be so bundled up.
Socks, like all of it.
I am. I'm going to be very prepared.
We'll make sure to get footage of it.
Yes.
We'll make sure to document it.
The proper thing would have been like, I'm sure you're prepared, but baby, are you? You know?
So it's how you word it.
Yeah,
It's always here's
about-
the thing in marriage, and this always happens. Like when you have an argument and you think someone says something the wrong way, it's so easy to be like, what you should have said was, except for like, who thinks to always say like, babe, I'm sure you're so prepared. You've probably already packed for this whole trip. But I'm just making sure you might be cold.
If
like
you-
I'm eating
if you
and I wasn't
started
eating a acai bowl, I was eating a burrito.
Do you think I would have been
Way
defensive?
harder to talk when you have a burrito in your mouth to get all those words
Do you
in.
think I would have been defensive if you worded it like that?
I don't know because
wouldn't
you were on the defense.
I wouldn't. No, I was not.
Sometimes when you get on the defense,
I was
you're
not.
on the defense.
I'm always on offense. I'm a scoring guy.
That is not true. That is not true. Wait, what?
In all honesty, it was just a little like, hey, you know.
I actually saw a marriage video one time, and it was the Bevere family's kids did it, and it was about being on defense in marriage and how basically the whole skit was funny. They had a fence literally like attached to them in front of them, and they were being like really defensive, and it was basically showing like when you're on the defense in marriage and like your communications like that, there's always something in between you. It was actually a really good like visual for it. And there was a question on here that talks about what does healthy communication look like in marriage, and I think we could probably both look at our arguments this morning and pick out some advice to people on what it looks like to communicate more in a more healthy way. Like you said, I could have started by assuming the best out of you and saying, however, I will say I wasn't even assuming the worst out of you. I really was just wondering if you felt like you had enough. But if I would have known the backstory that people had already questioned you and you felt doubted, I definitely could have used more of language like, hey, I assume the best of you. I know that you probably have prepared for this, but I want to make sure you're not cold. That would have been a much more sensitive way to say it. I do think one good marriage advice for communication is do not start on the defense, because it's like for you brought into our conversation a week of being on defense from other people's conversations, and I didn't even know this was even a thing, so I'm caught off guard that you're even on defense about me making sure you're going to be warm.
Here's the thing.
But that's good advice, though.
That's great advice.
Yeah.
But I was saying in the grand scheme, it wasn't like it wasn't like those comments had like rattled me or like Shakespeare and make. I wasn't like it wasn't like I was like really struggling with like, man, people really don't think I have enough warm clothes for this trip. Like that wasn't that serious.
However, judging based off your reaction this morning, you would have thought that you might have been a little rattled.
Okay.
Okay.
Again,
Well, speaking of defensive, we were talking earlier, and Parker was being defensive.
don't
this
throw your
morning.
friend under the bus.
Hey,
I'm
it's
not
okay.
throwing him under the
You know,
bus.
it's okay.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well, do y'all have any advice from y'all's communication flops sometimes on things that y'all feel like you've noticed in your marriage? You're like, okay, I could have said this better, or whenever I say things like this, it does not go well.
A lot. I think it's different for the person. Like for me, it's like I need to assume that Parker's gonna respond with my best interest at heart rather than like assume the worst in me, kind of like what you're just talking about. Like this morning in our conflict conversation, I didn't say it because I was like, well, you're about to go on a trip. I don't want to stress you out. Like work's a lot. Like we can't resolve this. And he's like, I would rather talk about it in like 5 minutes rather than like wait 10 days to talk about it. And it's like, I have to remember that sometimes it's not just about me when I need to resolve something. Like it's about our marriage and like what's also going to be best for Parker rather than assuming I know what's best for us.
Right.
That's good. Have you ever heard someone say, always stay learning? I seriously always want to stay learning and growing. I think that's the best way to live. Seasons go by where I want to know more about business or more about cooking for my family. There's always something that I want to be learning, but no matter what season you're in, there's always something that you can grow in or that you can choose to dive in a little bit deeper with. With Masterclass, you can learn from the best of the best wherever you are with really whatever you want to learn from. Whether you have your phone with you or your laptop, you can learn right then, right there. You can learn songwriting from Alicia Keys or John Legend, or maybe you want to improve your makeup skills. You can take lessons from Bobby Brown, or maybe with the holidays coming up, you want to learn to cook a little bit more. They have amazing cooks you can learn from. And hey, for me, I wanted to improve my tennis game a little bit, so I I even took lessons from Serena Williams herself to learn more about my forehand. So whatever it is you're interested in, Masterclass has something that will always help you learn and grow. I also love my class. It was the class from James Patterson. It was Write from Idea to Ending, which is such a great concept to learn about because if you're a writer and you know anything about writer's block, it is real. My husband and I just finished a book and there were so many different times in that we had this great idea, but it's hard to get to the end. So I think so many times we have these ideas, we want to live them out, but it can be really hard, honestly, which is why I love this class because it gives practical steps to how to actually finish. And finishing is very important. So creatives out there, writers out there, that could be a great course for you. There's honestly something for everyone. You can access Masterclass from wherever you are, whether you're on the go or at home. You can watch from your phone, web, Apple TV, Amazon, Fire TV, or Roku, and take classes on tons of topics. I've taken classes as short as 10 minutes long, and one that I watched was over an hour long on business. So whatever you put into it, you can get out of it. The classes come with their own materials too. I love to download the documents that come with the classes and save them for later to look back on. It's basically like school, but it's really fun and the thing that you actually want to learn about. Or maybe you're learning about cooking, and if that's the case, you can actually save the recipe right to your phone. It's more than just videos. There are so many resources with each class, and there are 11 different categories with more than 150 of the top people in their field, which what a gift to all of us that we get to learn from these incredible people. And it all starts at just $180 for a whole year, but that's actually such a great price for all the resources you're going to get to learn about and all the people that are so skilled in what they do that you're going to get to learn from. So I highly recommend you check it out. Get unlimited access to every class, and as a Whoa That's Good listener, you're actually going to get 15% off your annual membership, which is such a steal. So go to masterclass.com/whoa now. That's masterclass.com/whoa for 15% off of Masterclass. Because it is so easy to assume that you know it's best instead of just like bringing it up. And it is true too that sometimes we do wait so long, and I found that like the longer you wait, the more like it multiplies like the problem, instead of just like taking time to be like, okay, this is not gonna be fun, but like it needs to be done.
Yeah.
It's true.
Just nip it in the bud.
Nip it in the bud. It's hard though. Okay, a lot of people are probably wondering how we met too, because we talked a little bit about this, but you two are like the OGs.
Yeah.
Y'all brought this friendship together. Without
did.
y'all wouldn't even live in Louisiana.
That's very
is
true.
so
Sure.
true.
I'll let Parker tell the story.
Well, the first time I remember meeting you is we were still in high school, and I lived in Auburn at the time. Christian was coming from Florida, but we met at a rush event for a fraternity that we were both considering rushing at the time.
Yeah.
I knew your older cousin.
Yeah.
And we met mutually, but I remember like, man, this is a cool surfer dude from Florida. Like,
One of these surfers.
yeah, maybe we can get along, but that's about the only thing we had in common was.
You did put that off that bio, because when I first saw Christian, I thought he looked like a hot lifeguard. That's what I said. I was like, he needs to have like
Wait, how does
white sunscreen on his nose. Like,
how does me being a surfer dude correspond to me being a lifeguard? Like, because they're both beachy.
same place, yeah.
Well, I'm just
Defense.
No, that's not being defensive.
Defense.
Here's the thing.
Hey, this is being recorded.
That's
So you
it.
like that?
It's your hidden camera.
But now, because I remember meeting Parker at the Rush event, but then we also had like a lake. I think it was that same weekend, right?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah.
No, I remember meeting you, and I was like, Parker seems like an awesome dude. At the time, I'd not been the best friendships, so I needed to try to pursue good friendships. It took us a few months to become good friends because I still wanted to be pretty crazy, and Parker didn't. So it took us a little bit to get there.
Hey, that's okay.
How did y'all circle back? How did y'all become friends?
Honestly,
Deep friendship.
I mean, it's through church.
Through
but
church, yeah.
I don't really know what the.
The same bigger friend group.
Yeah.
Anything like that. I remember you invited me and one of our other friends down to your house right after school got out our freshman year.
Yeah.
And we hung out that weekend. I remember definitely getting closer that weekend.
Yeah.
Reading our Bibles together in the mornings.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Why are you blushing?
Well, because it's just funny just to look back at that time and just reminisce about that.
Yeah.
Because things like that feel like yesterday, but also they feel like forever ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I mean, it was 6 years ago,
Right.
which is crazy to think about.
They had such a deep friendship, and I have to say, because I probably said this on a podcast before, and it's funny now that we have Parker on the podcast, because I always say that me and you probably wouldn't have started dating without Parker.
That's true.
Because there was like, okay,
Parker gave me a lot of guidance.
Back to that, like whenever you were about to start pursuing me, like what are the conversations you had with Parker? Because I do think that this is a good, like this is actually a good example to people, because a lot of times like people pursue someone and like it's like a private thing, or it's actually not much of a pursuit. It's just they start a relationship and then they like don't include any of their friends. Their friends aren't involved in the relationship. It gets isolating and it gets weird and it gets bad. But like you had your friends as a part of our relationship before we were even in a relationship. And so what did that look like?
Well, I think for me, and obviously you know it, I'm like a super indecisive person.
Yes.
Like I like having people around me to speak into things that I might overthink.
Yeah.
Or like doubt. So for Parker, a lot of it was just like through prayer of like, you know, I hope this works. Please pray that this actually works out. So a lot of it was that kind of prayer. But even just like conversation, like, I don't really even remember like the majority of our conversation. You might remember some of them, most of them maybe. I don't know.
I remember y'all had like a long talk walking on the beach.
I remember that talk.
I heard about that too.
Yeah.
And it was just like us talking through like, hey, what would this look like? You know, would I be capable of leading this? Like, how would this kind of like work out? And just kind of like needed some encouragement to like, hey, if I'm going to pursue this, like, you know, it could change a lot of things in my life. So just talking through those things and like seeking wisdom and like having just encouragement from like a friend that I really love and respect.
And that is huge. Like what you just said is so foreign to so many people listening. Like that you would even stop and consider before pursuing, because it would be easy to just pursue because you're like, I like this girl. We, you know, we have a lot of chemistry. We talk on the phone all the time. Like it's so fun. And I think whenever you get like your fun and like feelings involved, like things go super fast. But you were like slowly like, okay, is this actually wise? Is it actually smart? Can I actually do this? Like, what will this look like for me? And like talking out with one of your best friends. And then you really did do everything so intentionally. Like the start of us dating was so intentional, which actually built our foundation for dating to be so intentional and so great. And then that built our foundation for engagement to be so great. And then marriage to be so great. And so like, I think that was just the start of a good relationship. And I know y'all did those things too. Y'all's friend group was just so mature. And like the guys that y'all surrounded yourself with and how y'all helped each one of each other start the relationships that they were in. And I thought that was really cool. But I laughed because on the phone with me when Christian was like asking me on my first date, he just kept saying like, and then Parker said this, and then when I was asking Parker, and then Parker was like, I think you should tell her this, or I think you should ask her this way. And I was like, the whole time I'm like, who is Parker? Like, and I'm like, you don't like, you have to tell me that Parker told
Parker's
you to
like
say
a little
it.
voice in my head. It's like, dude, like a little puppet.
Parker said that maybe I should ask you on a date. That like it was just so funny, but it was awesome. And so then it became Parker's turn that Parker started dating someone, and many of you have also heard this story because when I found out Parker was dating someone, I was so excited for Parker. I wanted to get to know who he was dating, and that's the whole story of me going on Freddie's Instagram and seeing the picture of Christian with another girl.
We're not rehashing it.
We're not rehashing it. But I think it's funny because so many people have heard so many of these stories because they are two of our best friends. And now like the dots are connecting for everybody like, oh, it's them. It was her. It was all the things. So Parker, talk about whenever you started pursuing Freddie and what y'all's relationship looked like.
So I started from the beginning a little bit. We met going into our freshman year. There's this thing called the Oaks Retreat at Auburn where it brings in a bunch of incoming freshmen and you get to meet other Christians and meet different ministry people and things like that. So we met there, and I was like, oh, Freddie. Like, never met a Freddie before. And she had a really cool Jeep. It was lifted, like mud tires.
Freddie!
Yeah,
I was like, man, I could talk to her a little
Parker
bit.
Also, at that point, had a lifted truck. So it was kind of like...
People associated us.
Yeah.
Because of
our cars.
I didn't know y'all met at the Oaks Retreat.
We did, yeah.
That's awesome.
It's awesome. But when we met there, I quickly found out that she had a boyfriend. So I was like, all right, you know, whatever. Like, I just kind of left my mind. But then I kept seeing her at church. We kind of started going to the same church and same friend group and things like that. I knew she was in a relationship. So I just kind of wasn't on my mind at first. But I quickly found out that Freddie had some interest in me because she was pretty vocal about it.
Were you still dating the guy?
No, I didn't think about that. No, we weren't dating. It was one of those off and on, really unhealthy But I was completely at the point of like, nope, we're done when
Yeah.
I started vocalizing the feelings.
Right.
Because when you saw Parker, you liked Parker.
Yeah, when I first saw Parker at the Oaks retreat, vividly remember being like, oh, I would break up with my boyfriend.
You
didn't tell me
always
that, of
knew.
course, but
Like, you always
Yeah.
knew.
She did, which is awesome.
I did know.
And for me, I had people like Christian around me. You know, I was always pretty interested in Freddie, but I had people like, hey, she's got to have a relationship. It's probably not the best time to pursue something.
Where were we? We were in your truck somewhere, and you told me that. I'm trying to think where we were. You were like, I like somebody. I was like, who? And you were like, Freddie. And I was like, that's awesome. But I don't remember where we were.
Yeah, that's probably
I think we were outside of my house at Half Moon. I think that's where we were. I think you were dropping me off from somewhere.
Yeah.
That's kind of beside the story. But I remember that I was with you when you first told me that.
Yeah.
I remember you told me that he liked Freddie. Like, I remember, like, from the start, like, it was like, oh, you were so excited for Parker, because I think everyone knew that you kind of liked Parker. So it was like when he liked you, it was gonna be like,
Yeah.
It was only a matter of time.
It was. Well, and Parker was always interested in you.
Yeah.
It's just bad timing.
That's right. It
It
wasn't the right
was
time
bad
yet.
timing. It was, we needed that time
We did.
to not be together. Mainly probably just me.
Hey, I need to grow. We all did, right?
Yeah, we all needed to grow.
So I've never actually been into composting until recently. I just feel like being a mama, me and Christian, we're always on the go. But now with Honey, we love to spend extra time at the house as a family. And let me tell you, composting comes in handy because that girl loves to leave some leftovers behind. And, you know, there's a lot of things, even flowers that we have that, you know, we're like, what do we do with it after it's done, you know? And so this is why we got into this. Recently, we got a Lomi set up in our kitchen and it's super easy to use. Some of you mamas out there, you know what I'm talking about. Your baby eats half of the veggies that you give them or half of the fruit or whatever it is. And this is why Lomi is awesome, because you can take the scraps that you use and it doesn't have to go to waste. It can actually just be composted. Lomi is a countertop electric composter that turns scraps into dirt in under 4 hours. And there's no smell when it runs, which is so great. And it's also really quiet. So it's kind of like, why would you not use it? Also, there's less garbage that you have to take out, which is also pretty nice. I mean, who's going to complain about going from 3 bags to 1 bag in a week? No one. So Lomi is the place to go. They even have an app that will help you figure out how to do it, what you can and what you can't compost, which is really great because, like I said, I didn't know anything about this. So the app is going to be very helpful. My Lomi sits in our kitchen, which is so perfect because after making meals or dinner, we can just throw in the scraps and compost it up real quickly. Or after podcasting, like I said, I can take these flowers home, compost them real quick, and then nothing really has to go to waste. You can just get dirt out of all these things in just a couple of hours. It's super easy. So if you want to start making a positive environmental impact or just make cleanup after your dinner so much easier, Lomi is perfect for you. Just head over to Lomi, that's LOMI.com/whoa, and use the promo code WHOA to get $50 off your first Lomi. That's $50 off when you head to Lomi, LOMI.com/whoa, and use the promo code WHOA at checkout. Food waste is gross, but Lomi is your solution. With the holidays just around the corner, Lomi will make the perfect gift for someone on your shopping list. Well, that's important because someone actually did ask about this. Like, for you, I think you're a great person to stop and have this conversation with, because sometimes, like, people just go from relationship to relationship to relationship, and I did that. And it is really important that, like, before you know, come into the relationship with the person that you're going to marry, that, like, you aren't bringing in everything from all the other relationships you've been in. Not that some of that won't come in, and not that some of that won't have to be talked about. And, you know, I literally got out of a relationship the day before I met Christian. So I'm saying this from not doing it perfectly. But also I'm saying that I do think it is important, like you said, to give yourself the time and the space before jumping into, like, another relationship. Because what I saw with myself is I just repeated the same things and the same cycles over and over again. And the reason I didn't do it with you is because you led better. And I, like, also had the Lord kind of, like, I guess, prep my heart the day before and just say, like, slow down. And so we took it really slowly. So I say it to say, like, there needed to be a little reboot in the way I was doing relationships. And I feel like that was that time for you of, like, let me get me healthy.
Yeah, I really needed to get my priorities straight. Like, we can look back and laugh about it now, but it was it was not funny at the time, like how much I liked Parker. But I think that was because I wanted a relationship and I knew Parker was a great guy. And I wanted that healthy relationship of security and like a godly man, so much so that I was just like, I got to have it. But it was like God knew I needed time and he knew that that's what I wanted. And so he was able to give me both because my heart was just like surrendered to what he wanted for me.
Yeah.
Which was Parker.
I think it's a great example, like, especially in college, all the pressure there is to be in a relationship. You know, everybody is just trying to find the right person instead of being the right person, you know? And so I think you were such a good encouragement to that. Is like, hey, if we just would focus a lot more on being the person God's called us to be instead of looking for that person first, it usually works out
That's
good.
a lot better.
Yeah.
I would say to people listening, as a practical piece of advice before you ever meet the person, is listen to like dating, marriage, engagement, all those kind of podcasts. Read the books about relationships, because I listened to Mike Todd's relationship series, and then Ben Stewart's Single Day Engaged Married. We read that book together. We read all kinds of books. But even before I met you, I mean, I listened to Mike Todd's, and I remember like the first one was like Before the Person, and it just really got my heart right. And like, okay, before the person, like, who am I as a person?
That's
you
right.
know, what am I going to bring into a relationship? And so I think it's already good to start like prepping your heart, to start preparing for your relationship way before you ever even get into the relationship. I think that also shows God that I'm surrendered to your plan for my life, but I'm also preparing for what you have for me. Right. And I think that's a great thing. One thing I want to talk about is we've talked about community in a sense, and community is so helpful in dating and in singleness and all that, but community is also so important in marriage. And a lot of people, once they get married, they kind of start to isolate themselves, and that is I think a dangerous place to be. I think it's a really hard place to be, because I think you like need couple friends. And I remember at y'all's wedding particularly, and our wedding was like this too, but I'm thinking about y'all's. During the rehearsal dinner, the amount of friends that stood up and just spoke so much life over y'all and blessed y'all, and we're so happy for y'all, was such a beautiful thing. And those same friends are still walking through your life with y'all. And for us too, like all the people that spoke life into us and encouraged us and all are still walking through life with us. And I just think that's so important to hang on to that. So what does it look like for y'all to be in community with other people in marriage?
Yeah, I mean, I think, at least for us, we try to like obviously prioritize each other, having individual friendships too, you know, because it's just important for Christian and I to have a good relationship, and with other guys to be honest and things like that, have people hold us accountable, because then I'm going to be a better husband, and I'm going to be able to be there for Freddie better in community and things like that. I'm healthy as a husband, but I mean, it definitely, you have to prioritize it, you have to be intentional with it. Because when you start to isolate yourselves, then you start to think you're the only ones going through what you're going through, you know, which I think we did in our first year of marriage. We were in a community group, but it wasn't, you know, we weren't being intentional. We weren't really speaking up about what we were going through. But if you're in a community, they'll start to realize, like, hey, something's not right. Y'all need to come to us. And so you have to have people that are there for you that will call you out and hold you accountable when you're not willing to be honest about what's going on. Because we all have that. When you're struggling, important. You know, you're like, you don't want to be honest about that. That's hard. Yeah. Especially the people you care about and look up to that are your friends. So you have to have people there that can help you do that when you don't want to be.
Yeah.
And I think it's like hard because like, I feel like whenever you're dating, sometimes you don't want to say something bad about who you're dating because you don't want your friends to not like them, you know? And you like love them. So when you say something, you're not trying to like, because your friends can turn on a dime. They're your friends. So then you can be like, they're the worst. And you're like, no, they're not the worst. Right. It's just that moment, you know? And so like you try to like protect that. And then when you're married though, it's like important that, you don't throw your spouse under the bus, and you're not going and talking bad about your spouse, but that you are bringing friends in to say, because at this point in your life, I feel like you should have friends that trust like and love both of you enough to where if you say one thing, it's not like, oh, they're a bad person or they're gonna talk negative. It's like, okay, how do we fix this? Like everyone's seeking like the better for your relationship. Like when you're dating, people are like, well, you can break up. When you're married, people are like, okay, well, y'all are married, like how are we gonna like fix this problem? How are we gonna bring y'all together? Like, and it's so helpful to have friends or a friend to say, oh my gosh, we just walked through this. Like, you know, even this morning, you're like, we already had an argument. Like, it's like, okay, that's it. We're not the only ones.
Yeah. Well, that's what I was going to say, because you just said it a second ago. Like, you can be in community, but not actually be, like, open and, like, transparent. You can just be there and not actually get anything out of it. Yeah, and really just, like what you just said, like, we were at the counter, and me and Sadie was, like, doubting my judgment on something. And then y'all could have just been like internalizing like, oh, well, we had to fight this morning, but we're not going to say that. But like, because of our relationship, you're going to say that because it's relatable. You know, so I think even just being in a spot in community and like doing life with people where like, yes, you trust them and you're vulnerable. Like if y'all's first thought of there was like, well, this is awkward. Like, but then y'all went through something the same morning, but like you wouldn't do that because we're all good friends. We all do life together and we actually, you know. Like that helps us as much as like y'all seeing that helps y'all. Like, oh, we're not the ones that go through that. So
the best is when you get to the point in your friendships where you can have an argument like in front of other people and like you're not embarrassed. Because like I know y'all aren't like, oh my gosh, like what is wrong with them? You know, they're crazy. They're like, oh man, we get it. You know? It's just life. But I think that is only built from inviting each other into our lives. Like we talked about this on the podcast before, but we have a Wednesday night group that comes over to our house and y'all are part of that. And that Wednesday night group is so real. Like we have so much fun. And most of the time we watch sermons, but sometimes we just end up talking all night, which is also good. It's fellowship. But y'all are all playing baseball and the girls are all talking. And when I say baseball, they're hitting Honey's ball pit balls in the house with
it's mainly me and Jacob, Bella's husband, and we basically just try to like strike each other out with Honey's little like plastic balls, and she has like a little bat.
So we're doing that, but then we also have these moments.
I typically win.
Where we're thank you for that. We also have these moments at the end of the night where I'll be like, okay, prayer requests, and it's not just like shallow. It's like, okay, no, this is actually what we're walking through. And I think like those moments are so bonding.
Pray for my test. That was all it was.
I know, yeah.
Pray for my exam tomorrow.
Like,
me and Parker led a Bible study. No, we led a Bible study. I think it was our junior year when every prayer request was like, oh, my teacher, my homework, pray for my test tomorrow. We're like, look, people, like there's more important things than your chemistry exam. Like, I promise. Sorry, continue with
that's real though. I remember in high school we did like prayer requests in the morning, and our teacher literally had to say like, I'm so sorry, but like no more dog requests. Like, cause it would always be like my dog, or it would be like my cousin's grandma. And it would be like, okay, unless they're like directly like in your life and you see them like on a daily basis, like don't bring it up. But it's like I think our prayer requests, that really actually is a bonding moment because it's like, okay, this is time to be honest. Like, what do we need to pray about? What are we struggling with? And that has been huge. And even the sermons that we watch are really challenging sermons. Like, we actually started this Wednesday group to go deeper in our faith and to grow in like our knowledge of the word. And so whenever we listen to these sermons, then we're all like, hey, what'd you get out of it? And even hearing everybody's perspective of what they got out of it makes you get to know that person more. So I don't know, I feel like that's a great way too, is like not just saying you want community, but actually building community. And I think for a long time I would say like, oh, I wish we had married friends, I wish we had community. And I was like so bummed because no one was inviting us to like their group, or no one was inviting us to like their thing. Then I was like, wait, why don't we start a group? Y'all, I love a good hair trend. I mean, those of you that know that, you know, my hair be changing sometimes, but it's fun to change up the highlights in your hair. But recently I have just loved getting back to my OG hair color. Honestly, just it's helped so much with the damage that has been done to it over the years. And your hair is something that you have to take care of and maintain, especially if you have been like me and you've tried several different colors over the year. It can, you know, add some damage to it. So if you're like me and you've jumped in on some hair trends and left behind some damage to your hair, or even if you just want longer, fuller hair now, then you gotta give Vegamour a try. Vegamour uses smart botanicals that promote thicker, fuller, and longer looking hair that you can actually see. They have something for everyone looking to improve their hair health. I've never been a fan of harmful chemicals, and I'm pretty careful about what I consume and what products I use, and all of their products are cruelty-free and never contain parabens or hormones. Vegamour is awesome because it doesn't have any of these nasty products, and my hair is honestly so healthy right now. I'm very proud of the hair growth that I've had. I know you're gonna love it, especially if you have followed hair trends super closely and maybe bleached your hair in the past. If you know, you know. Well, the Grow Revitalizing Shampoo and Conditioners work together to actually create visible, thicker hair, and it improves your hair from the roots. So you know you're actually gonna get good, healthy hair. You just massage the shampoo into your scalp for 60 seconds and then follow up with a conditioner. It's honestly that simple. With Vegamour, they have no risk when trying it because they have a 90-day money-back guarantee, but with the 91% of customers saying that they saw visible, thicker hair with Vegamour in just 3 months, I don't think you're going to want to do that anyways. You're not going to even want to run out of this stuff because it's so good. Don't let damage of the past hold your hair back from the potential of the future. Just see your hair's full potential with Vegamour today. Go to vegamour.com/whoa and use the code WHOA to save 20% off your first order. That's Vegamour, vegamour.com/whoa. The code WHOA to save 20% off at vegamour.com/whoa.
We just
Are we the answer to this problem? And it's been so fruitful. And so sometimes you have to look at the things that you're complaining about and say actually, can I fix that problem? Right. And that this was one of those for us that we certainly could.
Yeah.
I want to talk about Love is Blind because
I love
and Freddie, and Christian.
Parker is not in it.
Parker's the only one.
I'm on the tail end of it.
I can talk about it from the outside.
I'm on the tail end.
You got the outside.
All right, let me just preface this by saying, for those of you who watch Love is Blind, we're going to talk about Love is Blind for a little bit, so I'm sure you're so excited. For those of you who don't, I am not suggesting you go watch it. This is not me advocating the show.
That's why I haven't watched it.
Because it is not a godly show. It has a lot of cussing in it, which is actually something that I normally would never watch, but it was so intriguing to me. And to me, I actually think I learn a lot from shows like this in relationship. Again, this is not me saying you need to go watch it because you're going to learn so much, but Freddie and I have been watching it, and there was something in this episode that I was like, oh my gosh, this is something that we need to talk about on this podcast because I think this is actually a really big problem in marriage and in relationships in general. So basically the show is they go into these pods and they don't get to see each other, and it's all different types of people dating each other in the pods, and then eventually within 10 days, is it?
Something crazy.
It's 10 days you have to propose to one of the people in the pods that you've been talking to and building without seeing each other. Yeah. So totally the whole concept is love really blind? Yeah. Can you really fall in love with someone without ever seeing them? Is it truly blind? So they propose to one another, and it's this super sweet thing of they're so in love and genuinely they're in love. And I can actually see how, because if we talked on the phone for 10 days, thinking back to when we were dating, yeah. If you talk on the phone for 10 days, straight, and you're talking all day, every day, you're getting to know each other. By the time we saw each other, we would be I love you. Your feelings are so high. They're really infatuated by each other. And so as soon as they see each other, it is they just fall even more in love. They can't even believe that the one that they chose is so attractive. Yeah. And all of them do it. All 5 couples are just I won the lottery. You're the best personality, and you're so beautiful. They're kissing each other. It is so sweet. And then what happens is the next couple days is fine, but then they get to this ranch and all of them meet each other. So basically, a lot of the ones that dated the other ones are now meeting the other ones for the first time, the one that they broke up with. That makes sense. And immediately, the second they see what the other one looks like, it's all of a sudden they're no longer content with the person that they're with. And I was watching that and I was like, man, that is such a dangerous thing in relationships, is to not compare your spouse to anyone else's spouse, because the minute you get discontent with who you're with because you compare them to another person, it will mess up your entire relationship. Absolutely. And man, and the crazy thing is this person truly loved this person beside them. They loved them for their personality. They had so much in common. And there was a reason they broke up with the other person, because they did not have that in common, because they didn't click, because one of them made them mad. But because of the one thing they were comparing them with, in physical attraction, they no longer were even attracted at all to the person they were just completely satisfied with because of their comparison. And I do think that is so dangerous. And I think there have been times in even our relationship where you felt remember whenever we had Honey and I was saying their husband's so helpful or whatever. And it's I was comparing you in a sense to how helpful they were, when I would never want to be married to that person. I love you. I'm so attracted to you. And more than that, I love everything that you are and how you serve our family. But because I compared you to that person and this one thing, all of a sudden I started getting mad at you for the little things that you weren't doing up against what this person was doing. And I just have seen that in our marriage be such a that can be such a destructive thing. And it wasn't comparing you in physical appearance, it was comparing you and how they were helpful. Like one of them was like my brother John Luke. He was like changing all the diapers, and I'm just like, and you did too, but it would just be like the littlest thing, and I'd be like, John Luke would have done it, like I can't do that, because that just is making me like comparing you, making me discontent, and then it's causing so many problems. So I think that you can't do that in any relationship that you're in, but especially marriage. And I think when we talk about comparison so many times, like we're talking about comparison as like a female, like, oh, we compare ourselves to others, and that does make us discontent in who we are, but we don't think about comparison affecting like an entire relationship and something as big as a marriage, but it is so true. And as we've been watching that show, I feel like I've been learning a lot, especially in that department.
And I feel like in the show, something that I took away, which is funny that you can take away something from a show like that, but it's like they would use the excuse of like, because it was the physical attraction like you're talking about, but they would say, well, there's attractive people in the world. What do you want me to do? And it's just this way to allow yourself to sin. Like it was just an excuse to say, well, my eyes are going to wander, so I'm going to let them wander, rather than being like, no, like my relationship is that important. I'm going to prevent myself from letting my eyes wander. And it's like, things don't change when you're even in a serious relationship with the person you do love. Like you still have to protect yourself in the same ways. That doesn't change.
That is so good. We were just listening to Ben Stewart's message is David and Bathsheba. If you have not listened to that message, go listen to that message right now. It is to me the best message I've ever heard on lust, and it is like talking about how like David just the curiosity. And one thing he talks about is like God gave us curiosity. Like we're gonna have, but he was like, make sure you're using your curiosity in healthy, beautiful ways. Like
it leads to innovation. Curiosity leads to innovation.
Yeah, because it leads to innovation. So like use your curiosity and like play a new game, like start this, like use your curiosity in other ways, because if you're lazy with your curiosity can become something that actually leads to sin and not leads to like beautiful innovation.
Yeah. Well, you're saying in the sense of like if you're on your news app and it's like, oh, so-and-so's new swimsuit line, you're like, oh, whatever. And you're like, oh, what are her new swimsuits like? And then it's like click, then it's like, oh, interesting. Like so it's like that idea of like don't even let yourself like get curious with something that you know that you shouldn't be letting yourself go there in.
And I think like one thing you do a lot is like if we're watching a show and then something's about to get inappropriate and you literally get on your phone, like you hide your eyes, like you don't look. And I think like I remember being in a high school relationship and a guy like got on their phone and I was like bothered because I was like, oh, can you not handle, like, why'd you do that? Like, that made me feel weird that they were like, because then it made me feel like they were thinking something like inappropriate. But to me, like now with a mature mindset, when you do that, it makes me feel so loved and so protected and honored, because you're like, I'm not going to look at that because I'm projecting my heart, my mind, my eyes, because they're for you. And you're so right. Like that sin is like justified to so many people because they're like, well, I mean, I'm just gonna look. I mean, people are attractive, so period. But it's like, no. And you said this to me, like, I'm captivated by you. You hold my attention. And part of you holding my attention is me practically turning away from things that are trying to grab my attention. And I think that is something that, like, people don't think that they have the control over, but you do. Right. You know? Some people just, like, feel like, well, they're just falling subject to the culture, but it's like, no, you don't have to, like, but you have to fight. You have to be intentional about that.
It's living above reproach.
Are you looking at me like that?
I'm looking at you like what? I'm smiling at you.
That was so cute.
Play it back. Let's see what I was looking at. Let's see what let's see how I was looking at you.
It was cute. I was just having to take it. It was sweet. Man, no, that is a good conversation though, because I do think like, and maybe y'all can talk about this because, and we weren't planning on going here, but I actually think this is a good topic, especially when it comes to us. Y'all talk about in y'all's Bible study group, like it was like every week, not just the test thing. You used to say every week the conversation would be like, I'm trying to quit pornography. I'm trying not to lust. I'm trying not to like do all these things. And it was just like at some point after saying that week after week after week, y'all were like, okay, but are we actually going to quit? So what does that look like for a man to be like, okay, obviously we all struggle with this. I mean, you talked about being in a group of people recently, and it's like, who else has struggled with pornography? Every person that stood up. I mean, that's obviously a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, it's a huge thing it's obviously such a common thing to have lustful thoughts and lustful desires and all that stuff, but how do you actually, like, take hold of something like that?
I think a lot of it starts with, like, because for everyone it's different, right? Like, you got to find the common denominator. So, like, for someone it can be, you know, late at night before they go to bed, like, not being on their phone. Or for some person, like, when they go to the bathroom, like, don't take your phone. Like, or, you know, what I never did in college. I'm pretty sure. Do you do the covenant in college? So, like, having browsers to where, like, it actually restricts you from, like, looking up stuff. Like, having conversations of, like, more than just, oh, yeah, I'm struggling with it. But it's being, like, okay, like, in what situations do you let yourself go there? Or, like, why is that? Like, if you are walking to class, and then if you know you're going to walk by this person every day to class, like, and that provokes a thought, then, you know, try to find a new way to walk. Like, all these practical things like that you end up having conversations about. So I think it just goes deeper than, like, yeah, I'm struggling with it, but being like, okay, well, why are you struggling with it? In what situations do you let yourself go there? And, you know, how do you not get lazy with it?
It's good.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that I just want to say this, especially with younger people, like, your fight with lust does not end when you get married. You know, like, if anything, it can increase because the enemy wants your eyes to be anywhere except your spouse.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you're having conflict, things like that. Things are getting hard.
Yeah.
The enemy just like, oh, well, you'll feel better if you look somewhere else, you know.
Yeah.
So that's just something that you really have to be on guard for.
It's so true.
But I think, you know, I guess it's with any sin, but especially with lust, you know, it's easy to be like, okay, what's better? Is Jesus better, or is this feeling that this might give me to look at this thing or to do this thing? Is really the temptation that I feel like it boils down to. You have to make that decision, like, okay, because this is lying to me and telling me that it's going to fulfill me or make me feel a certain way, but it's really Jesus that can satisfy me and my wife. And so it's definitely a fight, but having people that can hold you accountable and call you higher is essential as well.
It's so good. I love that you said that, and we've hinted at that for a couple different things in this conversation of, you know, that doesn't just get better when you get married. You know, sometimes it even multiplies. Sometimes it's harder. Sometimes, and that's for different things, not just that. But there is a question here, and I love how it was phrased. And it says, everyone talks about how everything changes whenever you get married, but what are some things that don't change? Like, that's so good and so true, because I think for having a baby, so many people said that, like, your whole life is gonna change, get ready, like, everything changes. And a lot of people are scared to have a baby because they're like, everything in my life is gonna change. And I have to say, there's a lot of things in our life that did not change when we had a baby. Like, we actually, I think, are still the same people that we were before. I think we're better versions of ourselves, for sure. We still have friends over, we still travel, like, we still actually get to do things, you know. And so that's not actually always necessarily true that everything changes when you get married or everything changes when you have a baby. A lot changes, but not everything. And I think some people have this idea that, like, all their problems are going to change when they get married. Like, people always say, like, they think, like, oh, they have problems whenever they're dating. We should get engaged. That'll help. No, that will not help. That will not help problems. And, like, we're going to get married, or let's have a baby. Like, that will help bond us. No, don't do that. Like, that's not good. You can bond a lot of other ways like that. Well, that's going to actually challenge you so much in your relationship. And so for y'all, what are some things that you feel like, or have you seen that, you know, you thought, this might have changed when we got married, but have actually still been the same in some ways?
I think the big one is, like, the things you struggle with. Like, you're still going to struggle with the same things when you get married. That does not change at all. And I think, you know, like, whether that's a sin struggle or that's, like, even the things about you that you like that you, or you don't like that you want to change, like personality, like, all of that stays the same. Marriage doesn't come in and make all those things better. It actually makes them harder because it's like, okay, now it's no longer, like, secret to me. It's now way more publicized. Parker sees it all the time. It's like, I can't hide that anymore. And it, you know, when you're by yourself, it's easier to make it more secretive. It's easier to just be like, oh, well, this is just me. It's who I am. But then when someone steps in your life and they're like, actually, that's not how you should be. Like, that's actually a product of sin. You're faced with the decision of, like, are you going to change? Or are you going to stay in that sin? And that makes it harder. Like, that's what's a hard thing about marriage. But like, those things don't change.
Yeah.
It doesn't just like get swept away this day you say I do.
That's so true. I think a big one for girls is like the jealousy they have towards other girls, or like their insecurity, and they think like, well, when I have a ring on my finger, I won't care at all. And that's not true. I think that, you know, you have to really find that contentment in your own heart before with the Lord, and really, you know, decide in your relationship with God that you trust God enough to trust this person enough to be in relationship with them, and not worry about, you know, other people are being jealous. Because I remember my parents talk about that a lot, how when they first got married, my dad was like so jealous. He was such a jealous person of my mom, and not of my mom, but like for my mom. Like if other guys looked at her, whatever, and like you might think like, oh, when they got married, I mean, she's married to him, like she loves him, blah blah. Like, you can tell yourself that all day long, but when you have this deep like lie or belief inside of you, like that doesn't change when someone has a ring on their finger. Like that changes when you decide to let the Lord heal that in your own heart. And so there are a lot of things, I think, you know, if you think anything other than God is going to heal a sin in your life, it's just not going to happen. You know, only God can take that. Only God can redeem that and make that better. Yeah. That's such a good point. My baby's over there yawning. Wake up. Wake up. The church is alive.
That was a good point. Just because I'm yawning does not mean I'm not interested.
Wake up.
I think there's a lot of fun things that stay the same. Like I think for me, like, well, I thought when I get married, like I wouldn't have time to do the things that I enjoy. Yeah. You know, but I still do. Like I like to hunt. I like music. I like all these different things. And I thought that when I got married, I would just have to like go to work and come home and be with my wife, you know, which is awesome. I know, but that's just how I saw a lot of older people do life when I was younger. But the thing that stays the same is I get to still do the things that I love to do, but it's even better because I get to share it with her. Yeah. And she encourages me in the things that I love to do. And so I think that's really important when you're looking for somebody to be with, is that they're going to encourage you and spur you on to the things you actually enjoy to do, just like y'all do so well.
That's a good point.
And
I agree.
It's fun.
I do think life gets better. I think that, you know, a lot of what we're saying to you is, you know, marriage is a serious thing. You know, marriage is a serious thing, and it takes intentionality, and it takes God being in the center of it so that you can be the best versions of yourself for each other. But it's also such a beautiful, fun thing too. It is. I mean, doing life with your best friend really is just a heck of a way to do life. Doing life with someone that God has put in your life to lead your family is something that you just can find so much security and love in. And man, just having a companion. I think marriage is a beautiful thing, and for a culture that does not value marriage, it is very sad to see, because I think marriage is one of the greatest gifts that God has given us, as well as having children. You know, I think a lot of people think when you have kids, you know, your life is over. When we had our daughter, I think in some ways our life began, you know, and in so many ways it made us who we are, and it's been the greatest gift that's ever happened to us, so much so that we wanted another one, and we're like, let's have another baby, and you know, we want more, because it's just like been the greatest thing. Seeing y'all love our daughter is like the best thing. Honey was saying bye to Freddie last night, and it was like she was saying bye to her best friend. She said, bye-bye, with this little wave.
And a little kiss. It was so cute.
She said, see you later, bestie. So, I mean, these things in life that God gave us and that God designed, marriage, family, are such beautiful things, and the enemy is 100% going to be after them and after your heart in them. But if you just follow the Lord's leading on those things, if you're intentional about following his voice, letting people around you help you get to a healthy place in marriage, a healthy place to start a family, like, you're going to be blessed beyond belief. There's so much fruit in that. And then at the same time, if you're single and you desire that and it's just not the time yet, rest in the place that God has you. God has you there for a reason. Singleness is a beautiful thing too. Paul said, hey, it's better that you stay single. I think it's the best way to live. That's what Paul said, you know. And then other people, obviously Adam and Eve, they're naked and feel no shame. Like, what a beautiful thing. So there's beautiful things to both things. There's beautiful things to all things that God creates. And so being content in your season, one thing that we've talked about is, like, when you get discontent, man, it messes up so many things. But being able to be content with where you're at just brings so much fruit and so much blessing. So Parker and Freddy, thanks for being on the podcast. This is so good. Y'all are going to have to come back. And thank y'all for listening. Send it to your boyfriend, send it to your husband, send it to your girlfriend, your spouse, just all your friends maybe you're walking through life with right now, and you know you desire for that community to be stronger and helping you with some serious things. Maybe this is a great episode to send to them and make your community stronger. We love you guys, and we will see you in Wednesday. I'll see you Wednesday. Well, that's good.
See ya. Bye bye.